Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Nancy Cotten, and she's an autism awareness advocate. She helps parents develop strategies to avoid things that can expedite the problems in autistic children. She calls herself the Autism Advocate-Advisor, and helping parents with their strategies to avoid those exuberant problems, as well as help provide ideas that can make their lives easier from the effectiveness of meltdown, anxiety, poor diet, poor sleep, and many sensory issues. Her degree is in elementary education, and her passion has always been to provide the best care and education for children. Walking alongside parents through some difficult journeys have typically developing neurodiverse children have been an honor of a lifetime. And her 23 plus year as a corporate child care director for a large hospital, she saw many children who were on the spectrum. Many parents brought their children to the center after nights of little sleep. They were worried about their children's nutrition because of poor diets, and they were frustrated and overwhelmed by the meltdowns and the anxiety their children were experiencing. She has felt so much empathy for them and thought that there must be strategies to make things better. So she began to search for the answers. Later, a grandson was born and he was on the spectrum. And she has continued doing extensive research into her retirement years and found many ways to help the autistic community. And she's, sharing what she has learned. And as we are looking at so many more children today, I don't know if it's that we just weren't aware of it before, or really that autism is on the climb. I'm not quite sure what it's all about, but we are seeing so many children on that spectrum. And of course, it could be, small to extreme, and because there's so many different levels to that spectrum. But and there's some wonderful gifts to come out of it too. But at the same time, there are those anxieties and those meltdowns you were talking about. And as a parent, a parent is like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? And of course, society has in the past, and I think is beginning to change, has looked at these children as defective. No, they're just wired differently, aren't they? Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Yes, they definitely are. Here in the United States, our CDC says that 1 in 44 children are on the spectrum. Here in Texas, they're saying 1 in 36.
Wow.
And those are the ones that have sought, excuse me, sought help.
Yes.
And so we know there's even more. Um, I think it's a little bit of both that we didn't know a
Mhm.
long time ago. And yet I think that it is getting more and more, and a lot of that is our environment that
Yes.
we're in, and it's causing children to breathe bad air, drink water that's not pure, and also have food that has poison on it. And
Mhm.
so all of that is causing disruption in our brains and our bodies. And I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I agree. We can't keep putting all this adjusted food chemicalization in our body and not expect to change. And we're seeing a change in many ways, cancer on the increased, diabetes, certainly on the increase. But we're seeing people with brain fog or, developing other ailments.
Yes.
And like all the doctors want to put this, that, etc., but nobody's looking at the source of the food and all the preservatives and the processing chemicals that go into it, and that perhaps that is just changing the structure of our body from the inside out way too much.
right. In 2005, the Environmental Working Group did a study of moms and babies and the cord blood that was going from mom to baby. They took the cord blood, and on average, they found over 200 chemicals
Ah,
in that cord blood.
mm-hmm.
And so babies are starting out with
Yes.
all of these chemicals in their bodies. It's changing their DNA
Mm-hmm.
because if you do DNA testing, you can see that it's changed.
Yeah.
I had a mom the other day that I talked with whose husband was in the military, and so they were doing DNA testing. They have two sons who are on the spectrum, and she actually found out that she is too.
Mm-hmm.
And she realized that's why she has so much trouble with focus as she's working. So she has some ADHD in there. So this cord blood is kind of scary that we have 200 plus chemicals in that when babies arrive.
Right. So, I mean, I think we're also seeing anxiety being really, I mean, yes, the world and social media and news, wars, presidents out of control, everything else is causing stress. I mean, that is a no-brainer. But the anxiety level in people that used to be able to handle life, but now are feeling so anxious is really, I think, at a vibrational high that there's hardly anybody that doesn't feel some form of anxiety. And of course, our children are going to pick that up. And,
Absolutely.
whether it's actually in the DNA because the mother was anxious or the father's gene was anxious, or whether it's born into that society, basically autism is kind of like a hypersensitivity in many ways, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. While I was the director of that childcare program, we had a little boy that every single day he chewed on his collar. He was so anxious. And you could tell he was just, it was just awful for him just to be there and worry. And
Mm.
um, he probably didn't have a single shirt that had a good collar on it
It was his
because
anxiety spot, right? Yeah,
it was his anxiety spot. And it's just sad to see children with that kind of anxiety. But a lot of what's in our environment, the toxins and all, are just changing our brain to where we're not being able to cope.
yeah.
And children are dealing with that.
We're also more saturated on the outside than we used to be, right?
Mhm.
We used to have that space and that time where you could decompress and, have those moments of silence and calmness. And it feels like that just isn't around anymore unless make it happen, where it used to be more of a norm back in our day,
Right,
right?
right.
Because we didn't have so much saturation. And now the kids have the phones, the tablets, the TV, the computers, everything around them all the time. And so there's a bombardment of the sensories.
Mhm.
And there isn't that capability of just being still and silent and present in the moment.
Right. That is so important that what you're talking about. And the fact that parents are actually overscheduling children too.
Hmm.
They're in
Hmm.
so many activities that they don't have time to actually decompress
Yeah.
and just be just for a little while and not have anything really they have to do. Our children think they have to have something all the time now
Yes.
in their hand or doing something. And we just really need to be able to just calm down and just be for a little while, maybe not doing anything, but just sitting alone and resting.
Right. Oh, even the old-fashioned thing of just quietly in a corner reading a book.
Hmm.
Or, what we've forgotten is we're so busy constructing play that we've forgotten that children know how to play
They
if
do.
we get out of their way,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And now
Right.
we're so busy orchestrating all the playthings for them that we're just not letting them discover their own format of play. And you can see a great deal from that because when a child is just in their play zone, You know, I
Mm-hmm.
have a grandson of 28 months old, and I have another one at 3 months old who has Down syndrome. But
Mm.
the 28-month one is so linear or regimented with his play. Like he plays with cars all the time, but he puts them in traffic jams, or he has to have them in a perfect order. And
Mm.
you cannot come along and disrupt that.
Right.
And it's kind of, for me, it's, my daughter and her husband haven't kind of noticed it yet, or no, they're overwhelmed as it is right now. But for me, it's like, I'm wondering, is there a touch of spectrum there? Because he also gets anxious and he sucks on his wrist, the
Mm.
moment that anything, because that's his go-to, like the shirt. And I
Mm.
think that we need to recognize this, and not because of this is no fault, and there's no blame, there's no shame. It's
Right.
just understanding that this may be this child's challenges in society. Like he gets on better with adults than mostly he does with children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's we're the ones that need to adjust to what his needs are, what their needs are,
Right.
rather than saying to this child, no, you can't be different. You have got to fit in the way I tell you to. And I think that's the biggest detriment that we can do for them.
Oh, I can't agree more. We need to get into their world
Yeah,
and be where they are and not expect them to be in ours.
yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that our schools are having to deal with, that they can't. I don't think a lot of the teachers understand
No.
what they need to do. I know some of them do. Some of them have been trained, and I don't want to say anything negative about them, but there are so many that just don't know exactly how to manage
Or how to
um,
recognize it.
or how to even recognize
Yeah,
it. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
So,
had somebody that she kind of specializes in the teaching of children. They called her into the school over a kid, and this kid wouldn't sit still, this kid wouldn't learn, this kid wouldn't anything else. And she took this kid out into the corridor and she played a game with him. And the next thing you know, everything that he wasn't able to know, he knew because he learned in a different way. And I
right.
think this is one of the, probably the stresses on teachers today. There are so many new ways to teach your children. But really, if we look at it, where did it come up that a child should sit at a desk for 6 to 8 hours a day and read from a book and write? Children are active little creatures and they learn best from interaction, from playing, from being a part of something, than you demanding that these little bundles of energy sit still for so many hours. I think the fault is in what we're demanding of our children, whether they're on spectrum or not, as opposed to the children being disobedient or naughty or defective or anything else that they want to call them.
That's for sure. One of the things that when I was the director of the child care program, we had to help our teachers understand that these children do learn best through play. And so
Yes,
let's provide an environment where they can actually go into a center or a area where you have provided some things, and let them just have at it and do what they want to do with it, interact with their peers. But you can, oh my goodness, the creativity that you can see whenever they do that. And just, I have 3 children, and when they were growing up, you would provide a big box, and that
yes.
would be what they would play with,
Mm.
more so than all these toys that they get at Christmas or any other time, birthdays. And they love to get out in the yard and play in the sand and build castles and do all kinds of things out there. They're experiencing their environment, seeing all kinds of bugs and flowers and different things. It's just so many experiences that they can have whenever you just provide the environment.
That is the point, isn't it? It's we had a big box of dress up clothes. And
Absolutely.
and the
Yep.
amount of times they would suddenly jump into the living room all dressed up and they're putting on a play for us,
Uh-huh.
right? And full of expression and absolute delight of what they're doing, tra-la, and it was wonderful to see that, right? And it
Right.
gave them that liberty to explore and be these other personalities and everything. And I think that's so important because how can they manage adulthood if we're not teaching the skills of managing their own time, their own creativity, their own way of learning? Because this is, I'm not anti-education, I'm anti-education in its old format. It let me down growing up because I was a very sickly child and missed a great deal of schooling. And so they always expected me just to come right back in at where they're at and
Mhm.
and I never could catch up. But also, I couldn't learn that way. I was not a textbook kid. I found out later I had dyslexia, and I'm sure that if I was tested back then, I would have been, diagnosed with being on the spectrum because I cannot learn that way at all. I learned through conversations, I learned through life experience, but I could not learn through turn to page such and such, read it. It just droll, just didn't have me
Right.
at all. And we need to look at the times and understand that our children are different, that they've always been the same, but they learn
Exactly.
through play, that they're actually quite genius
Mhm.
in themselves. And we need to look at what is the genius in them and how do we bring it out in a way that they understand how to use it, not
Mhm.
dictate how they use it, but teach them the skills and the tools of how they can use it for themselves. We're not doing that.
No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not giving them the opportunity either to um, just have time outside and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Um, they're going to create,
Yeah.
and I was always surprised at what they created because it wasn't what I would have created.
Right.
That was theirs, and
Yes.
they felt proud of it, and we wanted to tell them that, wow, you did a great job building whatever it was he built.
Yeah.
And so, you're so right about all of that. Kiddos learn so differently, and we're not gearing what we have for them to be the utmost for them, to help them the best way that we can. And sometimes we just don't know. And I know those teachers just don't know.
Yeah. No, they
But
don't
we
because
just give them, yeah,
we're not
if we
giving
just
them the tools that they need, right? To
exactly, and giving them the time
yeah,
to explore and do what they would do.
yes.
Um, so yeah,
Well, I've known many teachers that stepped out of the box and taught their kids in different ways, only to get ridiculed. And it's
uh,
like, no, no, no. I mean, when my son had this one teacher, and he had him for two years, which was great, because normally every grade they turn to another teacher, and he had a bathtub in his classroom. He had a loft, and they had these. I can't remember what they were called, but they were reward things that if you finished at a certain time, you kind of got these gummy rewards, and then you'd accumulate them to a bigger reward
mhm,
later, right? Or
mhm,
you got to get into the bathtub to read, or up into the loft, and
right.
he would come dressed as Einstein. And one Halloween, I had my son dress up as his grandmother, and so he went around, kind of, yes, Sally boy. And he was
Uh,
fun until
yeah.
he had a divorce. Then he wasn't so fun anymore. But he made it fun, and so the kids kind of excelled. And I spoke to him about my son having learning disabilities. Now he's got selection. He's got OCD, and when he loves doing something, he's 110% out of it. If it's not his interest, it's over his head.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, we again love to put the labels there, OCD, DDD, BBBB, and all of that. But maybe
Oh,
it's just, addressing how a kid look. The point is, when he was interested, 110%
yep.
is in it. When he wasn't interested, couldn't care less. right?
Right, right. So that's something that teachers need to learn, that you go with their interest. They're going
Hmm.
to learn so much from just going with what they want to do. You can teach everything you need to teach if you go with what they are interested in.
Exactly. And I think the best teachers are those that are willing to learn from their students
Yes, absolutely. You are right. They,
because they know how to adapt and how to
mhm,
adjust and
mhm,
how to meet the kid halfway, as
mhm,
opposed to the teachers that I'm your teacher, I'll lord over you, you do what I tell you to do. And then
exactly.
what we're doing is we're creating, institutional children there that then don't know how to think for themselves. All they know is how
Exactly.
to
You are so
follow
right.
rules, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. 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 I took my 5-year-old grandson to the museum the other day. His dad was with us. And of course, we wanted him to see all these different things. And yet, he was not interested in a lot of the things we were.
Right.
So, here we go with where he needs to go.
Hmm.
And that uh, he's a little bit ADHD, so he was kind of flitting here and there. But I think he learned a lot from doing the things he wanted to do.
Exactly. Because he was engaged.
He was engaged,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yes, and that's so important.
Um,
Goodness.
as I said, I'm not anti-education at all, but just the regimentation of it. We take a child that for the first 5 years of their life, they've been in wonderful discovery, right?
Hmm.
They're in that wonderment of life. What if I do this or try this and explore that? Then we take them and regiment them, put them in a desk, stay there. You're now going to learn what I tell you you're going to learn. I'm not interested in what you want to know. And I'm then going to grade you. And
Yes.
and then from those grades, if you're a lower grade, that must mean you're dumb. And if you're a higher
Hmm.
grade, that means you're listening and doing as I tell you. And it's
Hmm.
like,
It's
no,
just not
no,
right.
you're missing out on what that child really is, which is such a beautiful creative that if we nurtured that creativity and we allow them to keep discovering, keep exploring, but giving them the tools, the strategies to understand what it is they're seeing or what to do with it,
Hmm.
I think we would have a human race that would be so much healthier, happier, and more productive.
Oh, yes, I agree. Totally agree. Oh, my goodness. We just really need to think about how children learn. And I, I wish we could just do away with tests.
Yes.
Tests are no good.
No.
They really don't tell us much of anything. Um, and yet, at least here in the United States, those are top priority.
Hmm.
Every state has all these things that these children have to know and have to produce on a test that you do know it. And they may know it in a different way.
Yes. Oh, I was useless at tests. I mean, I had that big F letter on everything, right? So,
Goodness.
for me, I mean, I exempted myself from school at 16, the legal age, and if I just there's no point in me being here anymore. I'm too far
Hmm.
behind. They once had a fire drill and didn't even notice I hadn't left the classroom. Nobody even noticed that I wasn't here. So what am I doing here? And I just knew that I didn't know, I'm a completely oddball in this system. And for me, I learned that through the art of conversation or through just immersing myself in experience, that I learned better that way.
Hmm.
And I'm a true colors coach. Do you know the true color
Hmm.
coach? So the
Yes.
four key
Yes.
personalities, the
Hmm.
analytical, they go after it. I see it. What can I make out of it? I feel it. And of course, just give me the instructions and I will build it. And the
Hmm.
instructions I will build never. I see it to its completion, who's going to be there, what they're going to benefit from it. I can tell you what my vision is, but I'm not the blueprinter and I'm not the builder. Right. So, but I always felt that there was something wrong with me because I couldn't read the blueprints, or I couldn't read the instructions. They didn't make sense
Right.
to me. But to
Right.
somebody else, those instructions were easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
again, I think when I discovered the true colors, it gave me some liberation to actually, no, you're not stupid. You've just have a different strength. And I
Mm-hmm.
think if we actually, age appropriate, did this with our children at a certain age of understanding how, what is their perspective on life, the personality trait, and we taught them to that trait, and teach them how to recognize those other traits so they can converse and understand, I think we would again have a better adult society.
Right. And look at you now. You are the person that talks to other people,
Yes, isn't it funny?
and
The least person to succeed, yeah.
and you have succeeded so well in your lane,
Because at
but
some
you had
point I
to
had
know
to,
what
I
your
had
lane was.
exactly. It's like, the undercurrent of who I was went before me, you know,
Hmm.
um, but then the doubt of what I wasn't stayed with me. And it's only through the experience of life and then discovering why I was different and embracing that differences that I could start letting go of the doubt. But there was still always that doubt with me there. But who will take me seriously? I don't have the degree,
Right.
right? And, this is, I think, again, as you're saying, no test, because yes, if you're a neurosurgeon, I'd like to know that you have gone to school to operate on my brain, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
that means you are specializing. Yes, you do need the piece of paper. You do need to know what you're doing because
Hmm.
lives are at risk, and engineers and things like that. Absolutely. But I think when we look at measuring children and their worth,
Hmm.
done based on test levels and marks, I think is such a detriment to them.
Oh, I totally agree. I agree. And children become very anxious before tests whenever they're like you,
Yeah.
because they know they can't really do what
Mm-mm-mm,
they need to do on
mm-mm.
that
Don't
test.
get the question.
No, they don't even know what the question is. I remember growing up, I had sort of a comprehension problem. And
Hmm.
so there were these tests that I had to read a paragraph and then I had to answer all these questions. And for whatever reason, at that point in my life, I just didn't comprehend a lot of what I read.
Yeah.
And so I was so anxious when those tests came
Mm.
about, and I really didn't do very well. And yet, when I graduated from high school, I was the valedictorian.
Right?
So, you
Yeah.
know, um, I wasn't dumb.
Yes. It's just the questions were because I found a lot of those kind of problems that they put in front of you. I'm a what if person. I don't see black and white.
Right.
I look at the gray and the in between. Yeah, but you're asking me saying this, and you're telling me I've got to come up with a category yes or no or something to this. No, there is a what if. What are the
Yeah.
circumstances? What is this? What is that? What if we approached it from a different point of view? And I got irritated at those. It's got to be a yes or a no. Because there is no yes and no to this. There's a what if.
Oh my goodness. Well, I just admire you that you have come so far, having the difficulties that you had in your early years. And
But then not just early years. I mean, throughout my life, being
yeah,
dyslexic very often in my writing, or sometimes I say words and I speak like Yoda sometimes. The words speak in a different way. My kids make fun out of me. But it's like, as Popeye says, I am what I am. And I think
that's right.
I wasted so much of my life trying to be what society wanted me to be that I was not embracing the gift that I was. And every person is a gift. We've all got a beautiful instrument, right? And that's what we should be nurturing. And this what put me on the path of why am I bending over backwards or struggling so much to be what everybody else wants to be and not allowing myself to be who I am and saying that's enough. It was a long journey. I don't want children to go through that.
I don't
I don't want
either.
children on the spectrum, children who are brilliant. I don't want children that have abuse at home. children
No.
that are on the economic spectrum. I want, even the rich kids have problems, folks.
Oh, yes.
Generally, their parents are so busy working and they're living in a bubble, the
Hmm.
Barbie life, and they're not part of reality. And I think we need to look at everybody, no matter where they are, and meet them where they're at
Hmm.
and say, you are enough. Now let's expand on that.
Right, right. Oh, I love that. Um, I, I feel that I did not understand who I was
Mhm.
until probably the age of 40.
You did
And
it before me, love. I was in my 50s.
well, we all get there at different
Eventually, yes. Eventually,
We're all
we stop
unique.
beating ourselves up.
But when I became the child care director of that hospital child care center, honestly, I went into it, I was 39, and I went into it and I said, okay, I'm going to do this for 5 years, and then I'll find something else. And I got in there and I had tremendous problems the first year of when I was there. And I think everything in the whole place broke.
Oh,
The heat, the washing machine, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, all of them broke.
so
And
the
I'm dealing with
structure,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm dealing with that as a brand new director, as well as dealing with some children who were being abused at home.
Oh, yeah.
And we're dealing, with all kinds of emotions at our center. But it taught me that I have a lot of strengths that I did not
Mm,
realize that I had.
yes.
And I worked through all of those things that broke and dealing with having to call into social services to tell them about a child who's probably being abused, and they'd
Mhm.
have to investigate all of that. And then, of course, losing the child from the center because two parents take them out
Yes,
immediately when they found out that you've done that.
right, of
And it
course.
broke the family up
Yeah.
because the dad was actually abusing the little girl. And so, there was just so much that I learned that year about, of course, that, but also about myself,
Yeah.
that was priceless. It was difficult, very
Hmm.
difficult, but it was very priceless for me to learn those things. So,
Well, we learn from our struggles, don't we? I always say that we discover our courage, we discover our strength, we discover our abilities, and we
mhm,
discover our resilience, and we realize we're so much more than we allowed ourselves to be.
mhm,
And it's through those struggles that you discover that the things that you just have to face, there is no running away from them. I
right.
always used to say when you were pregnant and feeling awful, because one doctor said to me, you're allergic to pregnancy. The babies take everything from you and leave me depleted, And it's like, there is only one way out of this, and that's birth, so I have to deal with it. So, that's kind of in many ways in these type of situations in life, it's kind of a rebirth of yourself, isn't it? That
Hmm.
duration of struggle, of redefining, realigning yourself and looking at, gosh, I didn't know I could do that, is kind of that rebirth into a new person, which can be very exciting.
Oh, it is. And I didn't leave at 5 years. I was there over 23.
Because you were making a difference and because that
Right.
you understood the importance of it. I mean,
I
your
did.
problem
I
of
did.
yesterday wouldn't have been the same problem as today, would it?
Mm-mm, mm-mm, no.
So there was always something that had to challenge you.
Yes. Well, and also, when I retired, and I didn't go into the autism awareness part at that point in time. I've been retired for about 13 years. But I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, I realized that I really wanted to help these
Mm.
parents. And so I began to do a lot of research and just trying to find some strategies that could help them. And at that point in time, my grandson was about 18. He's now 23. And he actually lives with his other grandparents, but I love him very much, and I just want the very best for him. I think he can live independently.
Hmm.
Uh, and, and I'm looking at parents of children who are teens and then adults, because all of these little children grow up
They do. Yes.
and they don't just automatically have no problems. They
Hmm.
continue to have difficulties, whether it's work or school or just getting along in society and having friends. And so um, I'm just trying to do what I can in my little corner of the world to help those parents and those kids. Um, and I've been told I shouldn't call them kids because they're loved ones.
Mm.
And I love that term.
Hmm.
And they're not kids when they're 23.
Right.
They are adults.
Yes.
And
Yes. And
so
for if
that's
we get
why
to a
I do
certain
what I
age,
do.
folks, where everyone's a kid. My kids are, on their way to 30s and 40s. They're still my kids.
They are. My three kids are still my kids.
Exactly. Um, and I think, one of the things, again, that we don't empower our children because of the system, is that we don't empower them to how to navigate through a problem of their own, right? We don't give them the empowerment to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that, or I have difficulty in this and I need help. Because we're
Right,
teaching kids, all kids, spectrum or not, that it's a weakness to ask for help. Where it is actually their strength to ask for help, because they then know it's okay, I don't know. I'm going to go on and ask somebody that does know. And that's something
exactly.
that we should all do in life, right?
Right, right. I was on a support group out of Austin the other day, and the person that was dealing with the support group had asked a man to come in and speak to us. He had actually started a group of apartments for the autistic community. And he told about the fact that they were actually teaching these loved ones to all the skills that they need to live independently.
Hmm.
And most of them didn't drive.
Right.
They couldn't get a driver's license. And so one of the things that they taught them was how to take public transportation,
Yeah,
which all of our children need to know,
exactly.
you
At
know, at
any
one time
time.
or
And
another.
every kid needs to know that. Yes.
Right. And so they were dealing with teaching them how to do that. They were teaching them about a budget,
Hmm.
because budgeting their money, if and some of them were working, so they had a little bit of money, and they didn't want to be spending it all before their rent came due
Right.
or before they bought their groceries, or those things that are important to know and do. And so people are needing the information.
They are.
They're willing to learn it if you teach it to them.
And don't
And
overload them, right? One step at a time.
one step at a time, right? With the bus, when they were taught about how to get on the bus and go where they needed to go and come back, they would go with them for several
Yeah.
times. And then they let them go by themselves. And the gentleman that was talking to us, when they would come back, of course, they made sure they were safe.
Yes.
But when they came back, the pride
Yes.
that those people had was
Mhm.
just awesome. And
Independence.
independence,
Yes.
something I can do
Yes.
myself.
Yes. And don't we all feel good when, whatever
Oh,
level it is, when we achieve something? Hey, I didn't know I could do that. Look
I
at this,
know, I know.
And so, anybody on any level, when they achieve something, I mean, we're so busy criticizing each other and judging each other, and we've become a very judgmental society, that we've forgotten how to celebrate each other. And,
Right,
I don't care if it's an inch or a yard, that celebration counts.
It
right?
does. It does. And it just boosts um, their self-esteem so
Yes.
that they they're ready for the next thing to learn and accomplish. So,
But it was peace of mind for, for the family, because, my grandson has Down syndrome, but they have no idea at this point. He's only 3.5 months or 3 months, something, that, what his challenges are going to be. Is
right.
he going to be nonverbal? Is he going to have, he's had some various health problems so far, but so far we've been quite lucky with some major ones. Um, they broke the femur bringing him out. That was
Oh
his first
no.
one. He was
Oh.
breached. They snapped it in half, and the poor little one for the first 3 weeks is in this huge brace, and they couldn't
Mhm.
even pick him up to hold him properly. It was really difficult. So that was his first start, and then acid reflux, and now he seems to be finally gaining weight because he's on the right food and eating at the right pace, and but it's all that navigation, trying this and trying that. That doesn't work. And I think as a parent, I think one of the big things to say, take a deep breath. Okay, this isn't working. That doesn't mean it's the be all and the end all.
Mhm.
Okay, what can you do differently? And the beauty of what we have today is that you have on these social media groups, autistic groups, Down syndrome groups, OCD groups, where
Mhm.
you can share. My kid is doing this. And then somebody will go, oh, my kid did that. Try this. Right? I
Mhm.
mean, this is a community of support from people who are going through it. So,
Yes.
whereas in the past, in many ways, you would have been ostracized and isolated from the
Mhm.
community. Now there are communities that embrace you, that want to help you. So, it's a totally different time in the world.
It definitely is. And I'm on some of those Facebook groups.
Mm,
And I see the parents that are posting, I am overwhelmed. I haven't slept in three
yeah,
nights.
yeah,
Does anybody have any idea what I can do? And I love helping those people
yeah.
because I do have strategies,
Yes,
and
yes.
other people do too. And there are plenty of strategies out there. They just need someone to tell them.
I mean, when I, see I always spend a certain amount of social media every day, because it's part of my interaction, part of my learning. But when I see somebody, going through this and that, and I go, I've done a show on this.
Hmm.
Here's the show. See if it helps you. Because
Hmm.
that's the reason I do these shows, is to inspire,
Hmm.
but to enable, to uplift, or to provide an answer. And sometimes you just need to hear somebody else who's been through it. This is what
Exactly.
they did. Maybe what they did doesn't work for you, but what the inspiration has been is don't give up. There's always another answer around the corner.
Right. There always is. And they just have to ask for help. And that was the other thing we talked about earlier.
Yes.
It's hard sometimes to ask for help.
Yeah. I've interviewed quite a number of people with autism. I've interviewed parents that were told to institutionalize their children and go and have another,
Hmm.
right? Basically, just give them away and go and have another. That was, really what it was. And as one mother said, she had to go through the feces on the wall and the tantrums and this and that. But their children have gone on. This particular child has gone on to be a graphic designer. Another young woman with great support from her mother. The father left, which very often happens, right?
It
And
does.
mother's left alone, and she's this young girl now is written, I think, 3 novels. She's a graphic artist, so she writes fantasy,
Hmm.
mythical fantasy. I've interviewed her on her own.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it's just to know she's very focused, and this is her lane. So it's not
Hmm.
for me to take her outside of her lane. It's for me to go into her lane and discover all that makes her be able to do what she does, right? And
Right.
and isn't that whether I think, quite honestly, I think people on the autistic spectrum, those that are especially productive and out there showing the world that I am just as valuable as anyone else out here, are a
Mhm.
great lesson to us. For one, they're generally very gifted and they have, something they're very good at. They're very focused on what it is they're good at. And
Yes.
they're very selective of the people they have around them. And they don't waste their energies on situations or people around them that are going to upset their equilibrium. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us.
Oh, I think so too. My grandson is a very good artist,
Yeah.
and that's his strength. And I think eventually he could probably get a job. I don't know whether it would be a graphic artist
Mhm.
or what, but these kids, these loved ones are really, really creative,
Yes,
and they have so many strengths that we just need to help them find those
yes.
strengths.
And what to do with those strengths.
Right.
Another young man I interviewed out of England, he's a DJ.
Oh,
He's a
wow.
postman by day. So got his route. It's very routine. He likes that because he knows exactly where he meant to go. And then every week he puts out a selection, DJ, but he does it the old-fashioned way. Coming up as so and so social with their new number and this or that kind of, like the
Huh,
old way that we used to listen to.
huh.
And he loves that. He's recently, got married and become a father, but
Wow.
he's he knows his lane. He knows what he likes to do, and he had enough support from family that they weren't demanding that he did else this or that, they empowered him to empower himself.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, they were good parents.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
really were because, and parents are good parents. They love their children, but some of them just need help
Yes.
um, figuring out how to help them. And so I'm glad that he had found his lane. That's
Yeah.
great.
And you do have the parents that are embarrassed by their children because of that societal expectation that everybody should be
Right.
perfect, which is
Right.
delusional, folks.
It
We're
is.
all beautifully perfect within ourselves and the gift of what we really are. Um,
Hmm.
the moment you start demanding people be something they're not, that is not their fault. That is society's fault. And
Right.
we're doing a disservice to society as a whole, demanding people be this and be that for your satisfaction.
Hmm.
It doesn't work that way. All right.
No, it does not. It does not. You're hitting the nail on the head for sure that these kids are beautiful kids. I feel for these parents whose families do not want anything to do
I,
with the kids, and that hurts.
yes.
That hurts really, really bad. And I've heard many parents talk about that they feel so alone, and especially if dad leaves or mom leaves and leaves dad
Mm,
with the child. Um, it is just so hard. There was a parent not very far from me who was just crying out. Her husband was working somewhere else and only coming home, on the weekends. And she really couldn't get out of the house because the child was out of control. She had no one, no family that
mm.
was around. Friends didn't want to be around them either because the child was out of control. And she just felt like um, there was just no hope. And I just felt so sad for her. And
Yeah.
she didn't live near me, or I would have
Hmm.
offered to help some. But there just wasn't any hope in her voice. And
This is where I go, Christians.
yeah,
Yeah, God says, love thy neighbor, love anyone. We're all God's children.
exactly. Exactly.
Where are you in the support of people who are going
You
through
know,
this?
you are so right. And I have pushed my church to begin to have a plan of
Mm,
dealing with these children. And so we've already had some meetings, and there are other churches that are beginning to do that. But this is
good.
late. They should have been doing this
Yes,
all along.
yes.
And it's just sad that you know people can't even go to church and
Or,
feel like that
and
their
it used
child's
to
going to be
be that,
taken care of.
that a community, no matter what, adversity a family was facing, they were facing it as a community. as the
Exactly.
village, right? Because that village was
Yes.
only as strong as everyone in it. And
Right.
now we've got out of this thing where you can only be a part of this community if you reach these standards. And anything below that, we don't want to know. That I don't call very godly, and I don't call it very community. And in fact, I find it incredibly ignorant and unkind.
It is. It's almost an injustice
Yes.
to those children and those parents.
Yeah.
And and that's not right. So I am hoping that my church really begins to, in fact, they were going to on their website have some kind of a button or something that you could push to find out about the program that, and they're trying to get volunteers to be buddies with
Mm,
that, with one particular child that that
yes.
child would know and could stay with
Hmm.
during the services and all. And I think that's a good plan. But also for maybe nonverbal children,
Hmm.
others, you need some signage,
Yes.
pictures of what maybe they might need, things that are really pretty simple to do. But
But
we
look
just,
how beneficial it is for the person who is supporting that child. That means that they're gaining a skill,
mm-hmm,
right? That they can use at any time in life, because you think this is just going to be those two or three children. You're going to meet children and adults with these challenges through your life. Well, now
right.
you know, I know how to sign, or I know how to recognize that that person is having difficulty. So I know, open up my experience box here. How can I communicate better with this person? And I think anybody that's budding up, and I think, putting Sunday school type programs together for them afterwards is
Mm-hmm,
such an experience for the person that's buddying up with them that they can take with them through their lives.
absolutely. Oh, yes, 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 yes. And outside of the church, we need to make sure that our police and firemen and
Yes.
all are very well versed in what to look for whenever there's someone who has a disability. And maybe it's not obvious.
Yeah.
You can't always say that this person is autistic, but the mannerisms and some of the
Mm.
things that they do, and you need to assume that maybe they are.
Yes. I mean, going up and grabbing them and then they lash out to you and you're telling they're
Yes.
hostile. No, they're petrified of you, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of autistic children don't want to, or adults don't want to be touched. You're in their space.
Right.
Right? And if they are playing up, it is because they're feeling threatened or frustrated or scared. And
Hmm.
this now
Hmm.
requires you to speak a step back, soft tones, lay a platform where they feel safe enough to tell you what's going on. It's the
Right.
same when we look at dementia patients,
Hmm.
people. The
Yes,
police, are unfortunately very much in America have become shoot first, ask questions later.
that's right.
And we're seeing this too much. We're seeing people dying in custody because they don't know how to treat the person that they've got. And I'm not about defund the police, but what I am about, fund social workers that do know how to recognize these signs to go along with the police,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Oh, that's yes. And for whatever reason, our governments are not really funding those kind of things.
No, they'll fund people into power that shouldn't be in power. They'll fund ego. They'll fund opulence, they'll fund, dysfunction, but they will not fund the people. And we have to understand, and I'm saying this, folks, I'm sorry, I'm Canadian, but it's all governments are like this. It's it's their special interests, it's their profit at the
Yes.
expense of people and planet. And until we change it around to investing in the people and the planet for profit, then we are going to see the detriment of humankind and of this planet.
Here, here. I'm with you right there for
But
sure.
unfortunately, when it's their ego and their pocketbook, their wallet, that is important to them because really they don't have a conscience, or that is their identity, how rich and how popular they are. then unfortunately, we're not going to see change. And when we still have people that you can place a fact in front of them and they call it a falsehood
Yeah.
because it may require them to look at something differently and take a different step. Until we have that, which I think is a long way off, we're going to see more detriment than we're going to see good. And we've got to realize it's not pointing the finger, hey, government, 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 people, organizations. We've powered them. We've empowered them to be what they are, right?
Right.
So all that they are and all that they're doing that is wrong, we've allowed them to do that because we voted them in, and we voted them in with our dollars, in our consumerism, we voted them in with our ignorance or their popularity. And three fingers are pointing back at us and saying, but where's your accountability? Where's your responsibility? What are you doing to create change? And
Right.
we have to understand that we've all got to take responsibility for our own choices in life. And there are those who don't have that cognitive privilege to actually understand it at that level. But in their own world, they know what choices work for them and what choices don't. So
Mm-hmm.
this is not the time to impose your choices on them, but rather ask them what their choices are and can you meet somewhere with it.
Right. Right. You are just really hitting the nail on the head. And I was doing a presentation this morning, my networking group. We were talking about justice, and it starts with us.
100%.
100%.
Accountability of our own actions and choices, right?
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And in fact, I wrote a little thing that maybe I should read while I'm here. Um, it says, because of the positive thoughts of people, kind words were said. Because of kind words people said, others were encouraged.
Mm.
Because of encouragement, people spoke up about injustice. Because people spoke up about injustice, a group was formed. Because a group was formed, major action was taken. Because major action was taken, children were saved from being trafficked. Because children were saved from being trafficked, societies changed. Because societies changed, the world changed. All because kind words were said.
I would like you to write that out because I want to put it on your show posting. All right. I want that there. And that is, we don't realize the ripple effect because we're only thinking one step ahead or two steps ahead. We're not thinking
Exactly.
about the full steps that are to come. And I think if we could understand, although thought needs to be in place, if we think with our hearts,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we think with our souls, but if we're there to lift up spirits, we'll understand we are enriching each other into abundance so much more through
Mm-hmm.
that kindness, through that lovingness, through that consideration, that and compassion than
Mm-hmm.
we are through any other medium whatsoever. And I've got a saying that our activism is great because we're talking about it, but I want to see actionism where we're doing something about it.
Actionism. I love the word. Yes.
Playing on words.
That's what this is all about,
It
right here.
is. It's a
And
call to action. And what
yes,
is it?
yes,
It's when people say, I'm one person, I can't make a difference. Yes, you can. First and
yes.
foremost, why are you unhappy in your own life?
Mm-hmm.
What is it about your own life that has discontent? And what are you going to do about it? Is it old programming? Is it old traumas and pains? Is it that you haven't found your path in life? You haven't found your meaningful purpose? Be willing to take that journey for yourself. And when you step into that higher frequency, the higher loving vibration of what you are and what you're doing in the world, now you actually understand the gift of who you are and how you can empower others, how you can be an inspiration to others, how you can be that kindness and that love that's going to help other people rise up from their own misery. But it starts with us. And if
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to take onus on ourselves, then how are we going to see change out there?
We're not. We are not. We have to take
Yes.
to heart and do what we can do. We have a coalition here in our county, and it is for justice. And there's all kinds of different categories. One of them is our jail, and our jail is
Yes.
horrible. We've had a lot of deaths in our jail,
Yes.
much more than Dallas County, which is much bigger than
Mm-hmm.
ours. And so we're trying to advocate for that. And what has happened is just a very few people started this coalition,
Mm-hmm.
and it has mushroomed into large numbers of people. They're going to all the meetings for the county commissioners, and they're making sure that they are holding people accountable.
Right.
They're going to our state. Austin is our state capital, and they've gone there to meetings with state people to try to advocate for money to help, get change for our prisons. Our prisons in Texas, many of them don't have air conditioning.
Oh, God.
We are
With the heat that you've been
experiencing
having?
106 and
All
7
right.
these weeks. For I think 31 days now, we've been over 100. And how do you survive? I mean,
When you're
it
in
was
a
a
jail,
huge,
that tiny window probably doesn't even open,
yeah,
no air
and it's
conditioning, and no even cooling down period even in the evening.
no, nothing. And yet, in our legislature, there was money that was appropriated for air
Yeah.
conditioning, but
Yes.
they didn't let it happen. And
Of course
so,
not.
there's a lot of things that need to be advocated for,
Absolutely.
not just that, but that's important. These are
Yes,
human
I had a
beings.
show a little while ago of a woman that was a nurse in the prison system. And the warden had made a pass at her, and she said, "No, I'm married, you're right." And the next thing she knows, she's being dismissed. And as a nurse, she gave one of the prisoners, who was apparently not allowed to eat. He was on some punishment with no food or water, which I think is criminal in itself.
Mhm.
Um, but she said, no, he has medicine and he has to have something to eat with this medicine. And so he used that as an excuse to dismiss her. And she knows it was rejection. And this, if she found out this was a pattern, right? She fought of it's 9 years, 10 years. Not only that, they blacklisted her anywhere else, right? So she fought. Unfortunately, she never got justice for her case. It was always push there, push there, push there, because the judge was a buddy.
Mhm.
The judge, "Oh, no, no, we're just going to dismiss this one," because to actually say yes, that means we're opening up a can of worms of what's going on in there. And she lost her case. But it's still important to tell her story, because
Absolutely.
what we're saying is um, basically shame on the judges and anybody else where you put your interests at the head of justice, right? Of
Right.
what is right.
Right.
Shame on you. You're in a position of responsibility and you are not honoring that responsibility. And we will hold you accountable, because somewhere along the line, somebody's going to hold her accountable. Um, but and I've done many a show, whether it's police or clergy, or the prison system, or even government, where
Mhm.
the backhand, or I'm in power, screw you, you're not going to get justice. And it's wrong. And the only way we put it right is by bringing about awareness and standing up together and saying, no,
Right.
this is not right. They want us, sorry, that's a hand thing that makes it go right. They want us to they want us to go away. They want us to not mention anything. There is money in the system for autism awareness, for autism support, for Down syndrome support, for mental health, for people with high anxiety, for people with depression. There can be money found. There are plenty of people that are willing to step up to the plate to enter these careers and be that supported. But we've got to support them
Right.
And that means there's got to be the right money in there. There's got to be the right resources in there. There's got to be people standing up on all levels of government, of humanity, of society, and saying that life is more important. But again, if you've got gun power that's so well is protected more than anything else in the United States over human power, if just another shooting, oh, we're praying for you, but there's
Mhm.
another bunch of children whose lives have been taken because somebody had an AK-7 or automatic rifle who never should have had it. Oh, it's a mental problem. No, the mental problem is how did that person get that gun in the first place, and why is it the public can get hold of automatic weapons?
Yes,
Right? The
absolutely.
problem is the relationship between America and the gun.
Hmm.
And if we're not willing to address it, and if we're not willing to change it, it's going to continue to gather more momentum. And that
Yeah,
means lobbyists, it should be no lobbying for the NRA to back any politician. That should be banned completely,
right.
especially from
Exactly.
that. So we have to look that this isn't just autism we're talking about or the rights of autism. We've got to look at our entire system sewerage
Hmm.
and realize that all of this corruption out there, manipulation out there, and the total disregard for human beings and planet, quite honestly,
Yeah,
is at the entitlement of a few who don't care who pays for their enrichment. And if we're not willing to stand up as collectives, as a community, as a country community, global community, and demand that change and create that change wherever we can, they're going to keep getting away with it.
exactly.
So we are the change we seek. We
We
don't like
are.
what's going on there. We've got to do something about it.
Exactly. We have to take action.
Yes,
Action.
actionism.
Actionism. I love that word.
And there's another beautiful word called flawsome, which I was introduced to some years ago, and I love it, and I use it a great deal. And when you look at the Orientals, if they take a cracked cup and they put it back together with gold, and it makes it even stronger, and
Mhm.
makes it more unique. And all of the things that happen to us in life is a crack or a chip in our cup of life. And if we put it back together with love, self-love, self-empowerment, self-enrichment, that cup becomes even stronger because of the
Mhm.
resilience and all that it's gone through. And I think if we look at our autistic society and go that they're beautiful gifts to us, if only we would learn to play in their playground on their terms and not demand that they play on ours. And to understand that we're all flawsome. Every single one of us has got something that was a challenge that we're facing, and that we need to have some compassion and understanding towards one another.
Right, right. I love that term. It's flawsome,
Flawsome,
F-L-A-W-S. F-L-A.
F-L-A-W, awesome. Yeah, flawsome.
Flawsome.
Yes, beautiful, isn't it?
I've heard that. I've
Yeah.
heard about that, but I didn't realize it was called flawsome.
Yes, no, I'm on a
That's
campaign for flawsomeness. I really am. There is nobody that goes through life, or especially reaches our age group, without, having had developed some flaws or, are flawed in some way. We realize that. But it's
yeah.
not about our flaws, it's how our flaws have made us awesome in the strength that we have found because of them, right?
Mhm.
And that's the
Right.
thing. And we have a flawsome society where there's, the emphasis is on the flaw right now, but
Yeah.
we can be awesome and learn from
Mhm.
those mistakes, if we're willing to put those pieces back together in the right way.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm going to have to use that some
Yes,
more.
yes, I want this word out there. I love it.
Oh my
So
goodness.
people who are listening, who maybe have an autistic child or don't even know they have an autistic child, but kind of listening to, yeah, maybe not. What would you recommend? How would you help them? How do they reach out to you and ask, what do they ask of you, and how can you help them on this?
Um, I I have a strategy session that I do not charge for. It's a free strategy session that I can
Bless
give
you.
every parent. It lasts anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. I talk to them about what I believe as a lot of the problems that we have in our society, in our world. There's a lot of toxins,
Mm,
heavy metals and toxins that are going into our bodies every single day through our air, water, and food. And so I talk to them about eliminating a lot of those. For
mm,
example, if they're using nonstick Teflon type pans,
mm-hmm,
that has a chemical in it called their PFAS chemicals. They are forever chemicals.
mm,
They have a hard time degenerating, and so they stay there. Back in, I think it was 99, about 98% of people had those in their bodies.
mm-hmm.
They did studies. Um, we talk about the chemicals they use in their homes
Yes.
because a lot of those have bad chemicals in them that they're breathing.
Yeah.
They're on the bathtub or wherever they're whatever they're using, and they get into our skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading just a few minutes ago about um, all kinds of sunscreen, that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is not good for our skin. I mean,
Yeah.
it goes into our bodies.
Yes.
There's all kinds of other things like Roundup on our
Yeah.
food
Yes.
that just really does do a job on our
Our
and
shampoos, our body creams,
shampoos,
yeah,
all
yeah.
kinds, deodorant has
Yes.
aluminum in it, just all kinds of things. So we talk about eliminating those,
And using, if you have to use deodorant, just Tom's toothpaste, Tom's mouthwash, Tom's
right? Right.
deodorant, right? All
All kinds
natural.
of
There's
things that
so
you
many all
can,
natural programs out there now. Yeah,
yes,
products.
and you can make your own cleaner.
Yes. Yeah,
So, I mean, you don't have to use what you buy in the store.
right.
Getting the toxins out, people sometimes use those things you put on your feet,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk
Yes.
to them about that. I'm sure that they help some. Um, Using all kinds of lemon juice and
Apple cider
apple cider
vinegar.
vinegar
Yeah.
and baking soda and all
Mm-hmm.
those things. So we talk about a lot of those things that they can eliminate and then add to, just to help get the those out. But I also have something that I found back in December, just recently here, that actually pulls out the heavy metals and toxins very
Mm.
easily. And they're just some little drops that you can use, but they're it's got a grainy sand stuff in it called zeolite. And zeolite in the earth actually attracts heavy metals and toxins.
Mm-hmm.
And a biochemist has actually taken that zeolite and has made it tiny, and also has cleaned it so
Mm.
that the molecules don't have a lot of those metals and all in it. And he's put it in some drops. And so we can give those drops to anybody for any reason. They may have autoimmune problems
Yes.
or bad cells or um, heart disease, whatever. But also, it helps children on the spectrum. Um, I just got a message last week from a mom in Thailand. I had sent her some bottles of this, and her little boy is now speaking. He
Mm.
was only saying a word here and there, but now he is speaking several words together. His emotions are coming out appropriately,
Mm-hmm.
and just all kinds of wonderful things. He's giggling and doing
Mm.
things that they hadn't seen. And so it's helping these autistic children. So that's one of the things that I tell them about. Um, and I just encourage them to, talk to other people, do some research. I have a book. It's called The Out of Sync Child. I don't know whether you can see that or not.
No, put it in front of you right here.
Okay, right here. The Out of Sync Child talks about all of the sensory things going on. And so I encourage them to get that book and read it, because it really helps them to understand what's going on in their child's body, and why they may be not wanting to eat A lot of the things that are in their brain needs to come out so that they have hunger. It helps when you get those toxins out for them to sleep. And that
Yeah.
is so important because these parents are sleep deprived
Yes.
and just
Oh, and
exhausted.
so are the children in many ways,
And the
right?
children are too. They are
Yes.
too.
Yes.
So those are kind of some of the things that I talk to them about. I love talking with them. I love learning about their families and maybe the siblings that are in their home
Mhm.
too, and how they react with each other. And so those are my main things that I talk about.
And how do people reach you, love?
I have an email which is Cotten, Cotten 123 at gmail.com. I also am on Facebook as Nancy Dodson Cotten, and you can message me.
And
I do have a website that is for the product that I was talking about, and that is Avini, Avini health.com/Nancy Cotten.
you also
So
have your website too, Nancy.
I do have a website. It is not real up to date, but it has a lot of information on it, and you can go there. It's nancy-cotten.com.
Right. And where do people get your book?
This is not my book.
Oh, okay.
This is a book by Carol Stock Krenowitz, but I do recommend it because it has so much good information. I haven't written a book yet, but I plan to.
But yes, and I'm hoping you're going to be a part of our Forgotten Children series book that is coming out for Christmas. So I hope that you're going to contribute a chapter there because we'll be delighted to
Oh,
have
I
you
would love to,
and
love to, love
sharing
to.
all that you know because yes, you're targeting this at autism children about the detoxification and the empowerment and strategies to put in place, but it really can go across the spectrum, whether you're a child or an adult.
Absolutely.
And so, we've
Yes,
got to understand that what is good for our children is also good for us. And if it's good for your autistic
exactly.
child, it's good for your other children. So
Mm-hmm.
most certainly, I hope that you're going to be a part of that because your wisdom would be absolutely wonderful. Um, and the book's coming out by Christmas, hopefully. So definitely love you to be a part of that. But, we've got to realize that our artistic children, they are not defected folks. They are beautiful human spirits with a gift of their own. They're just really very focused on what that gift is. Now, I know we do have some autistic children. There's the guy from Gilligan's Island, um, who and his wife, Bob, what's her name? Gosh, completely forgot it for the moment. Anyway, they had an autistic child who was nonverbal, who was also a little aggressive. And they, at that time had no help. So they were 19, 20 years on their own. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually he bought a house across the road and they finally found help. And somebody, a team moved in and because he's an adult now. And Bob died, and so it's easier on his wife. And but it sparked her writing all sorts of books, on children, etc. And her son, although still nonverbal, has found a different way to communicate, which they didn't have the skills or the tools to do at that time. And since then,
Right.
other people have stepped in. So even in that, they're still contributing in some way. And so we're all here to contribute in some way. And whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a drop or whether it's a gallon, that is up to our particular journey in life. But don't dismiss the drop because the drop is just as important. And,
Right.
let's not look at these children as a problem. Let's look at these children as a gift and try and understand what that gift is and
Exactly.
how we can help them navigate that gift into being something that's going to serve us all. And,
Mm-hmm.
back to that listening, we say listen, learn, and apply, but it's also listening with compassion and
Mm-hmm.
understanding and stepping out of your own hierarchy and, coming into their world and seeing it from
Yes.
their point of view. And it would be a great education for you when you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yes.
Thanks so
Yes.
much for sharing here today.
Thank you, Sarah. This was fun, and I really enjoyed visiting with you. You have such good knowledge, and you just take what you know, and you're able to express it so well, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And it's when the passion is there, right? And I think that's something that, well, a lot of people forget is we need the passion in life. We need to feel passionate and connected to something. And when we do, that makes all the difference. And you're passionate about helping families with autistic children, but also other children, helping families in general. I'm passionate about getting your message out there. So, follow our passion, folks. It can put us on the right path. Thank you so much, love. And to everyone out there, please, when you look at a family that clearly have a child that may be on the spectrum, you don't know, or it could be just a child having a temper tantrum, just show some compassion. Don't let them feel embarrassed. Even say, can I help? Is there anything I can do? They may be out for dinner and the child's having a meltdown. What can you do at that time? Don't worry, I'll look after your other kids while you step outside for a moment, right? It's just be there for each other, folks. Just be there for each other, please. Okay, thanks, Nancy. Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.